Hello everybody, Caveman TCG come to you with a structured deck Albaz Strike opening and discussion. Albaz Strike structure deck is probably one of the most amazing structured decks that have come out in a while, just based on the new fusions, the branded spells that came out, what you can do with the branded fusion, what you can do with Lubellion or Mirror Jade, and what you can do basically off of the structured deck, like using hex with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon and anything other combos, especially with Despia. Despot branded is going to be a nice deck in the future. But the structured deck wise, what also makes it really good is that the reprints in here. When you have Effect Veiler, Ghost Ogre, and a common version of Pot of Extravagance. So I just want to open up the structure deck, review the cards, just open it up, admire it, and just see what we get. Now, like I said, I know it comes with tokens. It comes with like a little mat that shows like little poems. And here goes the deck. Put that down. Here goes the play mat. I think both these monsters, Ice Jade and Lubellion, they just look amazing. And the back, I believe, that's the little poetry. The play mat that's coming out. How to play it, what cards you would need extra. Yeah, I just want to get to the opening and discuss more about the cards. Tri-Brigade Mercurier. Mercurier is the first thing on there. Now they got a little tab here. Nice and easy open. Well, at least I thought it was nice and easy open. Oh, fooled me. It's like, hey, it'll peel off easy, but you might have to work the rest of the way. Oh, wow. Okay. There we go. Tri-Brigade Mercurier. Now this card is the hand trap. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a fusion, I believe, that mentions fallen Albaz material, big quick effect. You can send this card from your hand or face up on the field, so that's also good. So it could be on the field or in your hand. Then negates the effect. If this card is banished, you can add from your deck to your hand one fallen of Albaz, or one monster mentions it. So if Brandon and White is on there, or you use Brandon and Red, which is not in the structured deck, it's banished. Especially with Brandon and White, if you have if you're using Albaz in your graveyard, you can also banish this card with it, and you can probably go to Lubellion and get a second effect from it. Spriggan's Kit is going to be your budget version of a Luber. This card can, if you have a fusion monster that mentions Fallen Albaz in your graveyard or your field, you can special summon this card. And when you do special this card, or when you normal summon or special summon this card, you can basically search a branded card from your deck to your hand. But unlike a Luber, you have to send one card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. But it's a budget Luber, so and maybe in Fallen Albaz deck you'll play 3, but if you have a Luber, you might just play one of this. The Golden Soul Sword. So they are combining every archetype that's been in Albaz's storyline. Where you have Spriggans, another one was Tri-Brigade, and this one is Soul Sword. So I believe that's Theo and the other guy, I forgot his name. But with this card, when a monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do negate the attack, Also, it's more like a creeple card. If you control a fusion monster that mentions fallen Albaz material, you can destroy the monster that declared the attack. If a monster is banished face up, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, plus one light spellcaster from your hand or graveyard whose attack equals its own defense. So in my thing, you could probably get like Ecclesia. If there was Ecclesia in this thing, but if you had Ecclesia, both Ecclesias actually, the Dogmatica or the Incredible one, then you're allowed to special summon this one, rather using a Soul Sword package or enough to tribute herself to bring out Albaz from the deck if you're using Incredible Ecclesia, or if you're just using the Dogmatic Ecclesia, then you can probably search out Punishment or For the Lease in this deck. I like the art though, it's nice. You go to the Fusion, Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon, one of the now new boss monsters. Now, when you get to this one, it's something like a nice Super Poly where you use Fallen Albaz, and they have a monster that's Fusion, Secret, Xyz, or Link monster. You can take their monster and use it as fusion material. A lot of times, though, with Branded Fusion, using Branded Fusion, you can get Albion, use materials for Albion, a dark monster. Then get Lubellion, then use Lubellion to bring out Ice Jade. But no, this card attacks, you can only use its turn, I think, once per 2. So if you use it on your turn, you can only use it again on your turn again. You can't use it not once per turn. It's like once every turn. So this is if you can't only control one mirror. Well, so you can only control one of these once per turn. Quick effect: you can send one fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that mentions Fallen Albaz. Banish one monster in the field. Also, this card cannot use this effect next turn. If this fusion monster is in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can destroy all monsters on your opponent's control during the end phase of this turn. So if they take, if you banish their card and they negate it, or they end up taking this monster off the field, at the end of the turn, it just board wipes them. So that's an ultimate card, good card to have. Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. So this is basically like your Albion. If you know Albion's effect, as soon as he hits the board, you can fusion summon by banishing monsters from your graveyard. The fusion summon again. Well, Lubellion's effect will be, I think you have this card for him. Yeah, discard one card. You can fusion summon one level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck. I believe by shuffling fusion materials on it into the deck from your monsters on the field, graveyard, or face up banished cards. So you can take your banished cards that were banished from Albion, put them back into the deck, and fusion again. So a lot of times you're gonna bring out Albion. If you're using the Hex fusion, you'll banish the Hex and Albaz, or you'll send it from the Branded Fusion, send Hex and Albaz to the graveyard with Branded Fusion, get Albion. Albion would banish Albaz and Hex Fusion, and you can bring out Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Or using him instead, you can bring out Mirror Jade. You probably get a nice 1-up in the deck. And to me, the best card in this set right now, to me, he's even better than the fusion monsters. I just pray to God that this card does not be abused in any other decks, which it might. What's kind of scary is that you don't really have to run Verte Anaconda because with Verte Anaconda you don't really get a lot out of it. You can go into Mirror Jade, of course, but I think just using Branded Fusion by yourself, you just get way more. So with Branded Fusion, you can fusion one fusion monster that mentions Fallen Albaz as material from your extra deck, using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, field as fusion materials. So the deck, whenever you're fusing from the deck, it's just outrageous. It's real strong. El Shaddai Shadow Fusion has one. Red Eyes Fusion has one. The Fusion Destiny, and all these cards are just been broken in Yu-Gi-Oh or the TCG at one point. And this card has a chance to be broken as well. You can see it maybe in the future. Grab one of the fusions, Lubellion or Albion, and Branded Fusion may be being hit to like one on a future ban list or so. But after you do use this card, something like Red Eyes Fusion, where you can't XY, you can't link, you can't synchro summon the turn of, so you can't do it before and you can't do it after. If you're synchro summoning before, then you probably cannot use this card. So just be aware of that. Branded Sword. This one, I don't think a lot of people are gonna play it. You can like get a whole bunch of tokens, and this may be one card that you'll use Albion, the regular monster, to send to the graveyard with his effect, and probably just use his graveyard effect instead of his original effect. But his original effect is banish any numbers of branded spells and traps from your graveyard. Special summon that many Ice J tokens. So if you have maybe 3-4 branded cards, and you can start just bringing out real big monsters, 25 attack tokens. So that's kind of good too. But if you banish this card from your graveyard, you can target one of your banished monsters that is Fallen Albaz or mentions it, and add that monster to your hand. So I'm not sure if you can maybe add one of your fusions back to the extra deck, or your kit, or your Mercurier that's banished for its effect, or the Soul cards that if it's banished for its effect, you can bring that card back. But it's maybe a card that won't see too much play. Maybe it will. Who knows? Branded Retribution is the counter trap card. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster, you return it to the extra deck. Return to the extra deck one face-up fusion monster you control or 2 fusion monsters in your graveyard that mention Fallen Albaz as material. If you do, negate the activation. If you do, destroy the card. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target one branded spell or trap in your graveyard, accept Retribution, and add it to your hand. So, if you're using like cards like a lot of Dogmatica cards, like what's that damn? This is one card where Dogmatica has a Nadir Servant, where you are sending cards from your extra deck to the graveyard, and a lot of the Fallen Albaz cards have graveyard effects at the end of the turn. Or if you just use them and they got destroyed, this card will help you return 2 of those monsters in your... Is your graveyard or is it banished? Is in your graveyard back to your extra deck, so you can continue using on their effects. Especially if you use Albion, or if you use Albion or any monster, and you want to put those back to your deck because you use them as Nadir Servant targets to get those extra cards. You can actually put them back in your deck to use them again. Or in this deck, they give you Pot of Extravagance, and you can put those back for extra pieces to banish again to draw 2. Now for the reprints, cards we should know. Fallen Albaz is the main monster of the deck. It's basically a super poly on legs. You summon this guy, normal or special. You'll discard 1 card, and you can use monsters on either side of the field as fusion materials, including this card, but you cannot use other monsters you control as fusion materials, so it has to be their field. So 1 monster from your field, which will be Fallen Albaz, and any other monsters from their field. So, if the new card comes out, think a part of elements of the next set that controls more than 5, or you need as much dragons as you want. As long as you use Fallen Albaz, I believe you can use as many monsters from their field, as long as the fusion counts for it. Here goes Albion, the Shrouded Dragon. This card I was talking about, where you can dump a branded card from your deck or your hand. If he's in your hand and you discard the card from your deck, he goes to the bottom of your deck and you draw one card. If it was in your hand, the branded card, you can special summon this monster. So he's good enough to dump out a branded card that has graveyard effects. Dogmatica for the least, the Knighted. During the main phase, if this monster special summon, which is kind of weird because you don't really have Ecclesia. Usually you want Ecclesia or her. You get Ecclesia to the field. You search out for the lease, and for the lease can be special summon and can then get a card. So I don't. This card would be cool if they had Ecclesia in here. Yeah. So why this card is here? And it's a nice reprint though. I think they weren't too much expensive, but it's a nice card to have. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. Then there's a lot of dragon support in this card and on this deck, so it can come in handy by banishing one dragon and summoning him out, and then he can special summon one dragon to the field. So if you bring him out and you have Albaz in your graveyard, special summon back Albaz and use Albaz's effect to fusion summon their field. And another thing I like about this deck is that it has kaijus. It has, I think, two kaijus, one light and one dark. So the light one, you can go to Albion, and the dark one, you can go to Lebellion. Kaijus are amazing because you can just tribute over their monsters. They got a Red Eyes Dragoon, no problem, tribute over them. They got Access Code Talker with a high amount attack, no problem, tribute over them. Now, there are some monsters that can't be tribute over, but most of the times, you just be tributing over their monsters. Chaos Dragon Levenier. Also, so I think it's a part of their dragon package they have in here. There's a good amount of lights and darks in here where you can special summon one monster from the graveyard by using all lights. If you're using a mixture, I believe, you can pop 2 cards in the field. If you're using all darks, you can shuffle 1 card from their hand into the deck. So it's nice to have. A nice little boss monster. Here goes the other kaiju, the dark one, Radiant. It's also nice because now that we didn't have a material for a dark fusion. Albion's light, so we're always using the light kaijus, and now we can use a dark kaiju to go into the Lebellion. Artifact Scythe, not a card that everybody likes. No one likes to be Scythe locked. Maybe also this signifies that it's not going to get touched in the ban list coming up, because why would they touch a card they just reprinted? Yeah, but if this card is on the field and it's destroyed on your opponent's turn, it basically special summons itself to the field, and then it locks your opponent off the extra deck. So it just takes out one whole mechanic out, and usually when a deck can't go into the extra deck, it's almost game over, especially if they rely on the extra deck. Now, there's a lot of decks that don't, but if they do, they're kind of hindered. White Dragon, Wyvern Burster, and I believe the opposites here too. Black Dragon Collapse Serpent. And then they have the little set here with Starly Safer. Keeper of Dragon Magic. Actually, this can, I believe, search out Branded Fusion, because it's normal summon or special summon, you can discard 1 card and add a polymerization, polymerization normal spell, or fusion normal spell. Branded Fusion is a normal spell, so you can actually search out Branded Fusion with this card. So in the budget decks and cards that use 3 structured decks are probably gonna play this a lot. And another effect too, if you have say if you have Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard, you can reveal the fusion card that's on there, then summon Fallen Albaz face down though. So if you can use other fusion cards, um, branding in white, the fusion, but if it was up face up, I think it would have been better so we can actually use a Fallen Albaz effect. But, it searches out branding fusion and gives us an Albaz in the field to maybe fuse on with another card. Summoner Monk, it's there. You can summon by discarding a spell. You can summon a level 4 monster from your deck, but that monster can't attack. So, I think that you would basically want to summon out Kit. Kit, search out branded fusion, and then go from there. Interesting card to have. Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit. It's a nice hand trap. It's one of the best hand traps that we have right now with Ash Blossom. And I really believe that Ghost Spell is going to be real big against this deck because it'll stop you from banishing. But, activates effects, especially if in the mirror match, Albaz, and this card tries to activate, you can just Ghost Ogre the Albaz, and the Albaz can't really do nothing. So, it's nice to have. Effect can be used from field too. Effect Veiler, the same thing, a cheaper version of Infinite Impermanence, has to be used on their field. Targets one monster and targets one monster on the field and negates its effect. The only thing about this card too is that if they can remove their card from the field, say if they use like Mass Change or Mass Change 2 and they happen to remove that monster from the field, that monster's effect can now still activate because the effect Veiler can only negate it if it's on the field. So, be careful with that. Ami Dragon Brotar. I think this might be his first reprint. I think maybe it was reprinted in a 10. I'm not too sure. But it goes along with the dragon theme. Okay, Branded Loss. I think this is your magical meltdown for invoked, basically. If you're fusion summoning, a fusion summon monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or affect monsters when a monster is fusion summoned this way. So I think I heard one guy say on the internet that if you're fusion summoning, they can't negate the fusion summon, and if they have an effect that activates when they're summoned, it's still part of the fusion summon, and they cannot negate the activated effect that it has when it's summoned. Let me know if I'm wrong, but that'd be a nice thing to know. So basically, this is a magical meltdown, and if you do fusion summon a monster, you can add one Fallen Albaz or one monster that list mentions it from your deck to your hand. So it's pretty good. Brandon and White. I think we went over this in the deck profile. It's basically your polymerization, and if you're using a Fallen Albaz in your graveyard, you can banish monsters from your graveyard instead. And if this card was discarded for a Fallen Albaz effect, whether it's Albion or while it's in your graveyard or Fallen Albaz, this card resets itself into the field. Branded Bond is a card that can basically summon Albaz from anywhere, as long as it's face up from your hand, your graveyard, or banish face up to the field, so you can use as a super poly effect, basically. Fusion Gate is the card that helps you fusion summon monsters since we don't have the branded theater. So this card banishes instead though. So there's extra fusion material, fusion cards. Same thing with fusion recycling plant, which I don't really understand. Is polymerization in this deck? I don't think I've seen it. But once per turn you can discard one card and you can add polymerization from your deck to your graveyard. And once per turn, during the end phase, you can target monsters in your graveyard that was used as fusion material for fusion this turn. So I guess this card's on the field. I don't think there's polymerization in this deck. But if you're using Albaz, You can use Albaz, fusion summon their monsters. Then at the end of the turn, you can get Albaz right back. So that's interesting. You can play one of in a budget deck. Ah, there he goes. Speaking of it, fusion substitute. So this card is always considered polymerization. So you can only play rather one of this card and two polymerizations, three of this card and no polymerizations. So its name is always considered polymerization. So as you know, you can only have three cards in your deck of a certain name. But I think you have to use monsters on the field. Yeah, then it has an upside too, where if you could banish this card from your graveyard, target one fusion monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck, then you draw one card. So, and I was wrong, it does have polymerization, just that, not the regular one. Ghost Sarcophagus, you banish one card from your deck face up. During your second standby phase, add this card activation, add it to your card. So I know the Soul card, the Tri Brigade, Mercurier, they all had cards that had effects where if they were banished, they came off. So I believe you would trigger those effects with this card. Pot of Extravagance. If you're running three cards or three structured decks together, you banish 3 or 6 cards in your extra deck. If you banish 3, draw 1. If you banish 6, draw 2. This was a very good reprint, I think, one of the best reprints so far. You know, I wish this deck had Ice Dragon's Prison, but you can't get everything, and that's fine. But this was a very needed reprint, even though it was repeated before, and it's coming down in price, but, you know, why not have more? Called by the Grave, you know, is the card I kind of want to see go back to 3. Especially, I don't think Crossout Designator really cuts it, and I think maybe this card was limited to 1 because of Crossout Designator. But, you know, this card's great. They Ash Blossom you, they try to Ghost Spell you, and, you know, you can basically banish that card and negate every card with his name's effect for next turn until the next turn. So basically, any hand trap they hit on you, whether it's Ghost, Effect Veiler, Ash Blossom, Bell, you can keep your plays going with this card. So it's really good too to see a reprint of this. Dark Ruler No More is another great reprint. Basically negates the effects of all monsters on your opponent's field. They can't really activate any monster's effect in response to it. And for the rest of the turn, your opponent takes no damage. So, but, you know, if they set up this field and they have so many negates that you really can't play through, this card's basically amazing. Basically, it opens up the board for you to play. So you don't have to worry about playing against a combo deck that has 6 or 7 negates on the board, or, you know, a couple negates, a couple disruptions. So, you know, it's a nice reprint too. Screams of the Branded, you know, that this card's not the best. I tried playing it in a regular deck, but it's just too much. You know, if a fusion monster sent to your graveyard this turn, push summon one of your fusion monsters that's banished or in your graveyard during the end phase. So it's like it requires too much. It's situational. You have to have a monster already in the graveyard that's a fusion monster, and another one has to be destroyed. So it's I don't know, it's hard to activate, it's hard to get off. Judgment of Brandon, almost the same thing. You target one level 8 fusion monster you control, and you can destroy all monsters on your opponent controls with equal or higher attack. A lot of times, you know, having their opponent, if you're using a fusion or using Albaz, and you're taking those big monsters off their field, they're not going to really have a lot of big monsters on their field. So, you know, you're not going to really destroy a lot of their monsters, because the Albaz fusions too also have high amount attack. Necrofusion, another good fusion card that banishes monsters from the graveyard. A lot of times you want to use this on your opponent's turn, because I believe they can't attack on the turn they're summoned. So at the end phase of your opponent's turn, you'll use this card bringing the monsters out, and all that stipulation is gone where they can't attack. Back to the front, just your normal, your trap card version of Monster Reborn, just that it Monster Reborns them in defense position. So you use your cards like Albaz or your kit to get their effects. Warning Point, it's a budget card or another negate where, if a monster is summoned this turn, that face-up monster cannot attack. Its effects are negated and also can't be used as material for a fusion, synchro, XYZ. So, you could probably stop certain decks like Prank Kids from using their Lampsies or their Prank Kids to go into Meow, or using some of them, even though they can probably extend again, but you can probably just hopefully kill a play by stopping one of their links or their fusions, or if you're playing against a synchro deck, they can't synchro off of that monster. Plus their negates their effects are negated. There can only be one. This is a great card. Basically, you can only have one type of monster in the field. So if you're running warriors, you can only run warriors. So if you're getting against like heroes or dark magician, they can only have one of those types. So you can't put multiple heroes on the floor. If you're using against a deck like Prank Kids where they have multiple types, it's not really good. But if you're facing a deck that has one type, this card's amazing. Dimensional Burials is also good in a mirror match. Lock out your opponent from one part of the extra deck. If Albaz likes to go into fusion monsters and this played against you, most likely they're going to be telling you can't go into fusion. So look out for this card in the mirror match. Or a lot of cards in the future might be adding this to stop Despia. Waking the Dragon's also cool. So you're having a lot of spells and traps in your back row. You want to put this down as bait. And if they do destroy it, you basically can summon one monster from your extra deck. And here goes your other fusions, Titanic Clad, Albaz and a monster with 2500 attack. When he goes to the graveyard, you can basically add a dogmatic monster from your hand at the end of the turn, or Fallen Albaz. And he can't be affected by monsters activated effects the turn he's supposed to summon. Regard the Glory Dragon, almost the same thing as Albaz, but he has a level 8 or higher fusion. And when he's sent to the graveyard that turn, you can search a Tri-Brigade card. Spring the Iron Dash Dragon is basically your spring inversion. One Fallen Albaz and one effect monster special summon this turn. Same thing with the other ones. If he's into the graveyard, you can search a spring card. He has another one where he can move to another column, and any cards, you can move this card you control to another of your main monster zones. You can destroy all other face up cards in this card column. So, here goes Air Albion. When he special summon to the field, you can basically do it again. Say, here he goes, watch me do it again. But he banishes the monsters from your graveyard for fusion material. And when he's sent to the graveyard, you can basically set a branded spell or trap directly from your deck. And that's all of the cards, really. Just these tokens are absolutely amazing also. Albaz the Shrouded. I really love these. Ecclesia the Exiled. Just like the little journey they've been through. Tri-Brigade, got the whole squad here. Nice looking token. Ready, aim. Fire comes next. The Virtuous Vestos. I do just love these art. And they also have a little story flavor on them too. Aluber, the Dogmatic. I love the way the art of Aluber looks here. There you go. That's been my Albaz structure deck opening / discussion. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be out. I'll also be trying to make a budget deck with three structured decks on how my take of it is. So stay tuned for that.